this. And we're doing a lot of different efforts here at headquarters, as well as I know in the States, to pivot to the current administration's priorities. The thing I'll say is as important as all that is, these fire assignments are equally as important. And at the time of the year, we have to have people step up and show up. I just ask that all of you agency administrators give your personnel the latitude to be able to take those fire assignments when they're needed and to adjust your priority work to account for that really important emergency response function that we need to have. IMTs are all based on and predicated on a volunteer system. It's a volunteer system, and it only works if you, as agency administrators, support your people to get the training, the qualifications, get the speed to competency, and be able to participate as a member of IMTs. So I just ask that you all give that the priority it deserves. I touched a little bit on the executive orders and secretary's orders, and knowing that we have a lot of change management that we've been facing here in the last couple of months. Just want to acknowledge and just say, how proud I am of all of you for your federal service. I'm proud of my federal service. I've been serving our country in this capacity, in many capacities for 36 years now. And so stay proud and stay focused to the work you are, and prove who you are and the work you do. Nobody can ever take that away from you. When you look at the work you do in your service to the nation, stand tall and represent us well, and continue to represent the Bureau, because I know you can do outstanding and incredibly great things. And so I want to just thank you all for the time today, and want to wish you all a successful fire season. I want to go ahead and give my good friend Mike Ned, our Deputy Director for Operations, a few minutes here, and I'll turn it over to Mike to say a few words as well. So Mike.
Yep, thank you, John, and we're fortunate and thankful for your incredible leadership. And I too, like you, want to make certain that our fire corps, the entire corps, and I use that purposely, that right when they go out, they come back home, right? And they come back home in a safe way, and we're giving them the tools. I am thankful for Grant and his team and our interagency team for the leadership, because I know Grant and his team are thinking every day how they can make the environment better. And that's better from a resources perspective, better from pay, better from wellness, whether it's mental or physical wellness, and the incredible work they've been doing. And then the last thing I want to say before we turn it over is, we have an incredible mission here. And I know many of you, like us, you are here for your dedication and commitment to public service. And that is something we are so indebted to each and every one of you for. I realize you all, probably like many of us, are faced every day with options, but yet you choose to stay and be a part of the BLM or be a part of the Forest Service or any other agency to do the work you're doing. And so the American people, I know, are indebted to you, and I certainly appreciate and recognize that, and will continue to thank you every day. And John, myself, and all the leaders of this agency, whatever we can do to make your life easier, I put that in quote, meaning giving you the resources and getting the heck out of your way so you can do your job. That is what we want to do. So again, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, team, and looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Morgan, we'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, John. Our first presentation is from Mr. Grant Beebe.
Mr. Grant Beebe. I'm here in the same conference room with a bunch of folks at NIFC, the National Interagency Fire Center, for those of you who are new to the Bureau. Brian Achziger is to my left over here. I'll pick him up when he starts talking. We did something similar to what we're going to do today down at the latest cohort of the line officer training at the NTC, the National Training Center. Really, it comes from something Mike suggested, which was, could we give some managers some better, more refined tools for how to look at, especially those collateral duty fire assignments that Jon Raby just mentioned, right? The ones that are so important to us. Just give managers some framework for how this should work, what timekeeping looks like, what approving assignments looks like, how and when we adjust priorities based on what's going on across the landscape. So I love what John said, which is the way he said it the other day, especially was like fire doesn't stop, right? So fire is here and now. It is a priority here and now, and some of the other priorities can be less time dependent. So it really becomes job one during the fire season. What we know from this fire year so far is that all signs are pointing to it being busy. It started off busy, right? It started off busy in January in California. BLM folks leaned in, took part, did what they could. Some BLM lands involved, but BLM folks certainly pitching in. And that spirit of BLM pitching in when there's a national emergency is what we want to talk about today. So that was huge, but we've moved from that into what you see now. Carolina's burning, Florida becoming involved, so a big southeast fire season. We know the plains have not been out of drought. The Great Plains have not been out of drought for the last 5 years, so they're going to have another busy fire season there. And then the anticipation with what we see for snowpack and weather predictions for building El Nino is that we're going to have another busy Pacific Northwest, Great Basin fire season, just like we have in the Northern Rockies. So, you know, we're used to it these days. It's a busy fire year pretty much every year because one of our fire seasons, our interlocking fire seasons, is extreme. And this year is going to be no different. Alaska's right in it. They've had minimal snowpack in Alaska, thanks to those of you in Alaska who were with us this morning. So we know it's going to be busy. We know that we in the BLM and the nation, we really can't do the fire job without employees, all sorts of employees supporting the fire mission. So it's fire folks. We've got 3,500 fire folks in the BLM. Roughly a third of the BLM is you know, they're F-coded fire people. 2,000 of those are firefighters, another 1,500 in support roles. But then we have all those folks who work for the BLM who've got skills to bring to especially IMT type work or what we call single resource work for when things get super busy and we start assigning teams to fires to take the burden off the local unit. We count on all sorts of folks coming into the program, stepping up and offering their skills and their abilities and their time and their attention to wildland fire as they can. What we tend to preach is that every BLM employee out there has some skill that could be applied to wildland fire response. So yes, we've got ground pounders, we've got engine folks, we've got, you know, helicopter folks, we've got all these specialized folks who are fighting fire, but we have with just as great a dependence on people who do procurement for us, people who do timekeeping, people do equipment time recording, people do logistics support, who help with food support. There's a job for everybody. So we always preach that if you've got a skill that applies to the BLM mission in general, you've got a skill that applies to the fire world as well. And so we've got folks out there who can help match people's skills to the jobs that we need. A lot of incident support jobs that we're talking about here, especially in this little session here, they don't require rigorous physical fitness. So radio operators, like we said, logistics support. You don't necessarily need to be, you know, a sub 5-minute miler to do these kinds of jobs. We take all sorts depending on what people's skills are and what their availability is. Some jobs can be performed remotely. We've got ever since COVID, a building pool of folks who can support fire incident work from their home unit or from their home itself. So that's a growing piece of the program. And that can lend itself to people who can't travel, for instance, who can't leave home for 14 days. So that's a building part of the program. But we will acknowledge, John gave us a little bit of a pass that fire does become job one at certain points during the Western fire season. But there are shoulder seasons where it's not so clear on which priority should take precedence. So we want to talk through some of that stuff. We always say that incident response needs have to be balanced with other critical bureau functions. There are occasions when some folks will want to say, well, I got a fire job, I got to go. And that's not necessarily such an easy answer, especially when we're not at planning level 5, the highest levels of preparedness. I'm gonna take a pause. Brian, have I missed anything so far, or I'm just gonna keep on rattling on?
You're doing great, Grant.
Okay, I'm doing great. He has to say that, so thank you for saying that. Some of the other things we're looking for, always radio operators, dispatchers. So we're always looking for dispatchers. Those can be skilled dispatchers, people who can do initial attack work, and people who help support extended dispatch centers that we put up when incidents are there. So there's usually work there that can be supported by folks. Ground support units, heavy equipment operators are always important from the non-fire side of the house. Information officers, people who have public information skills, those are key. Timekeepers, GIS folks, medics, safety officers, security folks, meteorologists. There are all sorts of skills that aren't necessarily ground pounding skills that are just as important to management. It's getting a little late in the year to be talking about this, but we'll hit on it anyways. And everything we're talking about now is laid out in a couple papers that we've got in the toolbox. One's a PowerPoint that talks about really about what it takes to support fire assignments, especially for folks outside of the fire program. And then another is actually a job aid. It's a 1.5-page job aid for managers. Like, all right, how how do I do this in my unit to support fire folks? Especially important for folks who maybe don't have a big fire organization. And we always say the first step for everyone is, if in doubt, if you have questions, go talk to your fire management officer on your unit or at your state office. But for off-season work, pre-work is advisable. In some cases, it's required. So employees want to participate in incident response need to be thinking ahead of time. Don't wait till July to raise your hand if you can help it. Talk to your FMO, talk to your fire folks early and say, hey, I've got an interest in helping in fire, or Jon Raby just told me that I should be interested in supporting fire. How do I do that? So that's step one. There's training, there's prep, there's just paperwork to do to get yourself ready to go. We counsel that employees who want to help have to discuss their interests with their supervisors and get permission to participate. So yes, it becomes priority one when things are hot and heavy, especially during the middle of the summer, but still people don't leave to go do firework without their supervisor being knowledgeable and permitting it, right? So we never advise people, oh yeah, just come help us, just leave a message on your boss's desk and say, I'm out of here. It's always pre-work and it's pre-permission before you go anywhere. Wildland Fire IMT rosters are set early in the season. They're set by now, right? So if people who want to engage in IMT work and want to be a rostered member, it's really an off-season discussion about availability and matching skills to IMT needs. But again, we counsel, you don't need to be a rostered member of an IMT to participate in fire. People who have skills can be ad hoc members of incident management teams or be making themselves available to the system to volunteer for fire assignments. And by volunteer, I mean volunteer to make yourself available. Obviously, the work is not voluntary, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with that in a minute. When a supervisor is asked to support an employee as a rostered IMT member, so like one of those members who's set on one of the 40 or so IMTs, national IMTs we have across the country, they should be aware, the supervisor should be aware of the commitment the employer is making. So the employee is committing to really a rotation on an IMT that can be 4 or 5 time assignments during a year. So if an assignment typically lasts 14 to 21 days, depending on the nature of it, somebody who's a rostered IMT member is really committing to those 4 or 5 rotations of 14 days away from home. So that could be an imposition on a home unit. One thing we counsel folks is that if they've got a skill that an IMT needs, contemplate sharing a position. So sharing is a great option where, yes, I'm a rostered IMT member, but I've got this other person who can take half the assignments. So then you're only committing to being gone 2 to 3 times a summer versus 5 times. So sharing a job is an option. Employees with their supervisor's permission should contact their local fire staff for information on critical needs, requirements, training, equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And then local incident business staff may be able to help answer questions about travel, timekeeping. We have some stuff moving right now in the fire world with the continuing resolution that just got signed, gave firefighters an increase in pay, a permanent increase in pay, and it also authorized us to do incident-based pay bonuses, I'll say, for all responders to wildland fire. We'll mention that in just a minute, but some of that is going to be especially this year, as we're just developing the rule set around that, is going to really involve timekeepers knowing what you're doing and employees knowing how to do the timekeeping rules. All right, I'm going to pause again. Brian?
I think you hit on it pretty well. I would just mention, Grant said we're already in the fire season. I mean, we have 4 of our incident management teams out right now in the Southeast. And so although a lot of our large complex incident management teams have done rosters, a lot of folks are still probably working through their type 3 team rosters. And that's another avenue that actually can provide not only local support, but geographic area support that we have a need as well during the fire season there.
Okay. A couple of hints. These things have come up over the last couple of years. Employees have to obtain explicit supervisory approval before making themselves available for a fire assignment. So if you have somebody coming to you saying, I need to make myself available for a fire assignment, that should be an ask, not a must, right? So they should be asking you to make themselves available. So there's got to be a supervisory step in there. Employees assigned jobs always come first, right? So the assigned work should be of high quality. If they're going to make themselves available and disappear, their assigned work should be of high quality, current, ahead of schedule, reasonably coverable by remaining staff in their absence. So if somebody's going to take off, is there somebody to backstop them, or are they ahead of their job? Other staff who are also not available for fire assignment must commit to covering temporary absences as fire assignments occur. So if somebody's going to disappear and you say this person is going to cover my job, they actually have to be available. You can't just say, oh yeah, somebody else is going to cover me, right? So that's just common sense and personal responsibility. And again, we're talking about kind of normal pace. When things get up to PL5 and we have the secretary saying, make everybody available, those discussions can be tempered a little bit by the national situation. Employee participation in incident response shouldn't inhibit progress on priority projects or issues. So we're really trying to get people here to arrange their work ahead of time to get the priority work done, or to a point where they can leave it for a couple of weeks and take a fire assignment. PL levels, we talked about PL levels, preparedness levels going from 1 to 5 at the national level. Right now, we're sitting at a 1, still 2, right?
Right at 2 nationally.
We're preparedness level 2, so at this point in the year, that's a little bit high. That's reflective of what's going on in the Southeast, where they're at planning level, preparedness level 4. We do expect Alaska will start jumping up the preparedness scale here pretty fast. Just a reminder, typical fire assignments, 14 days. People should be prepared to sleep in the dirt. Sometimes it's not so. Well, in the dirt relative, you get a sleeping bag, you might have a cot, but people need to be prepared for that. Sleeping outdoors. That's, one of the great parts about taking a fire assignment. It's not just your normal work, but people should be ready for that. If you expect to work 12 to 16-hour days, there is an opportunity more with some of the systems we have now, the fine internet connection we have in most places, maybe not in our normal offices, but at fire camps, we've got great internet. And so people sometimes can keep up on their day job when they're on fire assignments, especially if they're in a support role that doesn't require their constant attention. If you're working on the fire line, obviously your head is always on the fire game. Sometimes in support positions, people have some downtime where they can keep up on their home office work, but that's not always a given. So, yes, that can happen sometimes. People can balance home unit work and fire assignment work, but it's not a given for every assignment and for every job. So 12 to 16-hour days, common. When people come back after their 14-day assignments, there's a 3-day mandatory off period for us, for all of fire folks, and we apply that as well to remote employees. So we're just starting to clarify exactly how this works for remote employees, people who are doing fire support work from their home unit. But we're to date now with all of our partners, we're talking same rules apply. If you're going to go off on a remote assignment, working remote support from your home unit, you still need to take days off in between assignments. I'm going to pause there. I want to hit a couple things that are really catching our attention right now. So the DRP, deferred resignation plus Bureau VSIP, we know it's going to have an impact on a number of folks who are supporting the fire program from outside the fire program. So we know that there's going to be an impact there. We, as well as our other interagency partners, know there's going to be an impact on the number of qualified AAs that we have in the system. So we're anticipating that we're going to be a little short in places, and we're trying to come up with workarounds for how to cover those required duties of an agency administrator. Absolutely critical that we have a qualified agency administrator in place, but knowing that we may have to do some work on trying to get people assigned to stuff. IRPP incident pay for folks who do take fire assignments depends on your grade level, but it can be up to $200 a day. People can earn up to $9,000 doing that. That's one of the features of the continuing resolution permanent pay fix that got passed on. But we're super excited about that because that for the last 4 years, while we've been doing temporary pay incentives for fire employees, the other folks who respond to fires have been left out of that. And so this actually kind of includes more of the non-fire folks in the pay fix, really. And so we're excited about that. We're thinking it might encourage more folks to participate. So we'll be laying out for timekeepers and other support folks how that's going to work, how people are going to apply that to their pay, their timesheets. Other things that are happening with us, obviously pay tables are coming for all the fire employees. Those are getting rolled out now. And then hiring, Wildland Fire is public safety. So we've gotten, I'll air quote it, a pass on hiring, but we're still kind of following the same hiring processes that everyone else is. So it's not going as quickly as it perhaps could, but we do feel like we're going to be at full strength this year. We have gotten permission to hire all of the temporary seasonals that we need, and we're still working on other critical vacancies. So we're hopeful we'll be fully staffed as the fire season comes on. That is what I have. Brian? fill in blanks, what I've left off?
I think you covered it really well. I would just say, I think all the agencies are doing a look with the change that's happened about, with the new administration and folks taking the DRP and where we're at with hiring, like where are we going to be at the beginning of the core fire season, which really is probably going to be here in the next couple of weeks with the Southwest getting busier. And so trying to see how those things are affecting us. And so I would just say that where we can, those folks that do support fire outside of their normal jobs, I think it's going to be even more important this year because of that, that change that we've experienced. There's going to be less people available, most likely, to respond to fires. And so, and a lot of those folks that aren't available this year are folks that had a lot of experience, right? These aren't necessarily new employees that left the agency per se, right? It's experienced employees that have been around a while. So there's also a lot of corporate knowledge that left with those folks. So
yeah, we do know that folks who've taken the DRP who might want to come back as an emergency firefighter or an AD with the agencies cannot come back to the feds this year because they're still on the payroll. So they would have to. We're looking to see if we can steer them to a state agency that might hire them as an AD. For folks who take VSIP, they would have to pay back their VSIP incentive if they came back as a federal administratively determined employee. So we have gotten those two determinations. We are working on identifying places where folks who are leaving our service but still want to be in fire could look for employment. So that's one thing we're working on. And then before Brian and I shut up, I'm looking back to Mike and John and seeing if you guys have anything to kick in now that why don't we talk through some of these bigger picture issues.
Yeah, I'll just add here quickly and put again a little bit finer point on what you mentioned, Grant, as far as again managing our priorities in the face of an emergency response, reality that we all have to operate in. And so we really do need to make sure that we're providing here in the near term, and as each geographic area experiences their particular fire season, we need to make sure that the resources available right now to make our suppression efforts effective and efficient and again integrated with our state and local partners. So and that has to be based on the agency administrators letting the folks be in fire, again with all the things that Grant just went through about covering work, how work can be covered, which is all important. But given the choice of two things in the heat of fire season, you're going to choose fire. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And then we can work on negotiating on the back end any of the adjustments in targets, which we always do. It's nothing new to us. So just again, keep that in mind as we're working through this upcoming fire season and give that your full support. As again, both Brian and Grant had touched on, the reality of the changes we're experiencing are going to be something we have to adapt with. When we're talking about personnel, we're talking about key people who likely may not be with us in this particular fire season. They may have made choices related to the deferred resignation program or VERA or VSIP, and so plan accordingly. We know that right now we'll have to fill some key skill sets. Will be different than what we've experienced in the past, but it'll be also familiar territory for us. And that every fire season we have people that we do lose to retirement, we lose to other jobs. We have to work to bring on that next generation of leadership and skill sets to help us continue to be strong as an agency. So think about that. I mean, it's going to feel like a loss, certainly. And there are people I know that I've worked with for decades that I'll be very sorry to see depart the agency. But I also want to celebrate the people that stay, and we got to invest in them and make sure that we're giving them the greatest chance for their future success as well. And so just, again, build the time in to mentor people and give them the support that they deserve. So I think with that, I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to Mike and see if he has a few words as well.
Yeah, John, you and Grant hit on it. And I think, again, all the points you raise is very important. And get in supervisory in the mix of it, but paying attention to your current work and recognizing fire is important. So I think you cover all the main points.
Grant, anything else you all want us to touch on before we have to drop at the bottom of the hour here? But want to know we're a little bit past our time to head to another meeting, but I'm happy to spend more time with you and answer any questions that might be on folks' minds. I'm sure there's a lot of them, but you know, we can at least take a few before we sign off.
I did see there was one question in the chat I know about Vera versus VSIP. And Vera people can make themselves available as ADs, right? It's the VSIP folks who would have to pay back their VSIP. So yes, if someone's retiring and taking early retirement, they can come back as a federal AD. So that's good news. John, I appreciate you talking about priorities. We were joking with John that like he can tell people that fire should be a priority when things are busy, but I'm not allowed to say that. So I appreciate that, John. It's, you know, like you say, it's job one when smoke's in the air, and people know that. But it's good to hear it from you, and we got it recorded so we can play it back to people. Here's what John said.
Good deal, Grant.
Thanks. I know you guys are busy. Yeah. So thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. Thank everybody for joining us on a Friday. And we'll continue on with our program. And we'll round some questions back to you if we catch some later that are directly for you too. We'll make sure you get them and we'll get answers to folks.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks again.
Excellent.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, entire team. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know.
Bye.
Okay.
Get my video turned on. All right. Hello. I'm Sarah Synowiec, and I work for the Wildland Fire Management Research, Development, and Application Group. So we're an interagency group. I do work for the Forest Service, but that is across our group. Let me share my screen. We support the IFTDIS application, WFDSS, the Fire Modeling Services Framework, among some other things that you might be familiar with. All right, now you should see my screen. Hoping for some thumbs up on that.
Yep, we can see it.
All right, perfect. And you can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go. All right, so you may or may not know that the Wildland Fire Decision Support System, WFDSS, had a big week this week. So we have deployed the new application, commonly referred to as WFDSS NextGen, and we did that on Wednesday. So Tuesday night at midnight, we cut off access to WFDSS Classic, and production environment of WFDSS NextGen became the authoritative system of record for all active federal wildland fire incidents. We've also got the training environment, which is called EDU, available, and folks will be using that for preseason training. So you'll be able to play around in that environment. Any of the application access and role requests that we had at that date, we went ahead and processed those, as well as the geographic area editors. And you know, we're not done. Just because we were able to go live on Wednesday, we are going to continue to work to get this application really to support the field in making risk-informed decisions. So also, WFDSS Classic is still around. So the production environment became read-only at midnight, but users can still get in if you had an account as a viewer, and you can view and download content that was in completed decisions or analyses or anything like that. We also helped, there were half a dozen or so incidents that were in the middle of pending decisions, and so the RDNA helped those incidents get all that information manually transmit or migrated over. So we did a lot of copying and pasting to get that information in and get new analyses set up. And we've already had 2 decisions published in the new application. We're going to continue archiving activities. So all the legacy data that's in there, all the completed decisions, that's all going to be available as zip folders and files. So all that content will be available. It's not lost forever. And the Classic homepage will remind folks that they need to redirect to the new WFDSS homepage. Eventually, we'll start calling it WFDS again once there's less confusion. So we do also have the training environment of WFDS Classic is still available. We're going to keep that online through at least April 12th to support 495 and some other planned trainings. But both WFDS Classic environments are going to be offline starting, I believe, the beginning of June. That's when our contract is up. So not a lot of wiggle room there. So the WFDS vision is really, as part of the rewrite, was to make it scalable, map focused, and intuitive. So we have automated products so that this can be used for type 5 fires all the way up to CIMT. Map focus, the map is always available in the application. You can expand and contract this right-hand panel, but you can always return to the map while you're updating content in the right-hand panel. It's also intuitive. So everywhere here, left to right, top to bottom, is how we recommend you think about completing a decision document. Obviously, you can skip around if you need to and return to things, but that's how it's laid out. We've also got some, this is an example of the automated process or product. So it takes the planning area and it summarizes the suppression difficulty index by the planning area. We've also got snag hazard and PCL, I think. So there's quite a few things that we can do that are just automated and you don't have to work for it. We also use a lot of services, which is different than WFDS Classic. So we're really bringing the data into WFDS without the computational load. So we're leveraging a whole bunch of some new, some existing services like the National Incident Feature Service. So that's where all your GISS data goes on an incident. The Fire Modeling Services Framework is where all the magic happens with the models, and we are partnered up with the Land Fire Product Service to get landscapes to run those models on. We're also working with FEMS, the Fire Environment Mapping System, to get our historical and forecast weather. And we, alongside WFDS NextGen, we, as the RDNA, developed the Spatial Fire Planning Service to work with the unit LRMPs and the fire management plans to get that policy and direction into the decisions. And we're also integrated and aligned with the ISAP and RMA products where available, and that's going to be a continuing effort. So what do we really want to know? What's important in my 20 minutes is really some of the major changes to highlight for agency administrators. And it's going to be access and roles. We'll get to all of these. So these are the things that we'll talk about. So as far as access and roles, those are now managed through the Wildland Fire Application Portal, also known as FAMOF. And I think we're going to have a bunch of links dropped in the chat. If they're not there now, they will be. And those are the real take-homes from this. And so I'm going to give a broad overview, but those resources are probably the best to get you started down the road. And also includes how to get access and roles. So roles are simplified in WFDS NextGen, where every user will have a single role in each instance. So you can have a role in EDU and a different role in prod if you qualify for it, where you can have the same, but you'll only ever have one role. And this is what it looks like in FAMOF when you request application access and roles. For agency administrators, the most common and most appropriate role is generally going to be the editor role. There is a role that is lower, and that's automatically granted by the system, and it's viewer. And that's very limited in terms of functionality. So you won't see a map, you won't see incidents, you'll only be able to see your user profile in the application and the geographic area editor staff report. So if you need help, you can reach out to the GAE that's most appropriate to you. But once you're in the application, this is something that we put together for the approvers. So the The user profile is located, so we've got kind of some step-by-steps. And I will say most of these slides are part of the interagency agency administrator WFDS refresher that we sponsored, I believe it was like March 11th. And so we've also provided a link to that video if you want to watch it. So we went through 2 hours of what's new with WFDS NextGen, and I'm going to get it in 20 minutes. But this is really, really important, is to be able to approve a decision, you have to, in your profile, check that you are an approver, and you have to solemnly swear that you have completed the training per your agency policy to act as an agency administrator. Just checking this box doesn't necessarily mean that you will sign a document until you're added as an agency administrator on a specific incident. I think that's next. So locating incidents is simplified here. So you can search by name, and that's going to be constrained by the map view. We'll also only be able to find incidents that had a discovery date within the last 6 months that aren't contained, controlled, or out. You can also zoom to an area, and that will refine that right-hand panel, or you can select it from the map and go to that decision. So it's very map focused. Starting a decision. So if we've located the incident that we'd like to start creating decision content for, we'll click on it in the right-hand panel results list. You'll get this, the incident information, verify that that's the incident that you're interested in. You'll click decision and start decision. Anyone with the editor status or above can start a decision. But starting a decision doesn't mean that you have to publish a decision. It just gives you access to the content to be able to leverage some of those automated tools and a lot of the reference data, so that the decision process hasn't changed, or the policy regarding when decisions are required. WFDS NextGen hasn't changed any of the policy around anything, just making ways to better comply in some places. So once we start a decision, so if I started that decision, I would become one of the collaborators. And so collaborators are much like you would use the incident privileges in WFDS Classic. So anyone who interacts, anyone that you want to interact with an incident, the decision content would have to be listed as a collaborator. One person is assigned as the point of contact, so they're the lead collaborator, and usually it's the person that starts, but anyone can change who has the POC, as long as there is one person and only one person. And then this is where we add the approver, so the person who can approve the decision on this incident. And so that's going to be in this collaborators tab, using the little checkbox, and then you'll save it. So here we can see that both Nicole and Bree are available as approvers because their approver symbol is dark. Otherwise it would be grayed out and you wouldn't be able to select it. So we could change approvers. We could add all three as approvers, or just change between. And anyone who is a collaborator on the incident can do that. As far as, we also have implicit collaborators, so people that we don't necessarily designate as a collaborator on our incident, and it's folks that we are relying on to help support incident content. So fire behavior analysts do not need to be added as incident collaborators because they are implicit collaborators. So they can also help manage this collaborator list. They can create new analyses, they can accept analysis requests, and the same with GAEs. So you can reach out if you need to get added to an incident, and and there isn't anyone who is on this list that's available to speak to, you can reach out to your GAE and they can add you to this list if it's appropriate. So I think we got this, the approver part. And this is just a snapshot of what this is going to look like in terms of some of the other things that we have within the system. So we have a ton of spatial reference data, a lot of new stuff in the fire safety and fire environment and weather. And then we'll also have the spatial inventory that is part of this fire area. All right, so this is the meat and potatoes for agency administrators, is really the rationale. And we've reformulated this to be very specific about my leader's intent is and decision update triggers. So just highlighting that, and we've included these rich text boxes that have some functionality. So you can add images, you can cut and paste from other documents. We do know that the bulleted list is not working correctly right now, but all the other functions should be good. And you can add a table or you can take a picture of a table. So all the things that support your decision, you can put in here. And the way that we have the new decision formatted is that on the first page after the title page, we will see the leader's intent. So big message up front. And then, so this is really just the process. If you go to this assessment tab, all the required documentation, setting the assessment return interval. So you approve, sign, and publish, and then all your published decisions will show up. One of the things that we've added here is a length of time for your return assessment is 1 to 14 days, but we've also added an option for strategy has been met. So if your fire is meeting all the objectives, meeting all of the things that you have in your decision, then you can use that. You can always undo it if your fire has changed, and reset your assessment period. So, and I think this is something that we're also pointing out is that every time somebody comes in to do an assessment, it's going to publish a new decision because it's not extra to do more decisions, and that helps to capture your assessment notes. Quickly, so getting user support, we are really emphasizing continuing to use the same processes and protocols that you have locally through your GA and your agency. And so I've provided some self-service links. The WFDSS homepage is the spot to get information. And so that's going to be this page right here. So we have quick links to our tutorial videos, the link to the agency administrator resources, and then all of the support topics. Really handy is this search box. So if you know what you're looking for, you can just type it in. And then here's a list of some of the videos that we've got. Finding your GAEs, there's a video on this, so I'm not going to go really deep into this. We still use the IIA help desk to report bugs, and they can also check your access requests. This is the way that we get, as part of the RDNA, get some of that information to respond to users. So building and growing a new application is not all sunshine and rainbows. So we did have to build WFDSS NextGen from the ground up. There was no code that we could use from WFDSS Classic, and so we are breaking things as we're building them. But we're on day 3, and we've had successful decisions and successful analyses, so we're feeling really good about what we're able to provide to the user base. What we don't have right now, but we are working on, starting today, is legacy data access, the ability for multiple approvers to approve. And so one of the workarounds for that is documenting within the rationale or the leader's intent that's where you can highlight that approval. You can add screenshots of signatures or anything that you want there. We're trying to stay consistent with the PMS 236. So we will have the Part E, which is the incident complexity level, to go along with your organization assessment. We do only have FS Pro running right now, but we're working to get the other fire models in, which Farsight and FlamMap. Incident history. So every time someone changes something within the decision document, we'll take a snapshot of that. And this one I really want to highlight is there are no user notifications. We don't have the ability, but that is coming. So in terms of assessment notifications, users are going to have to take that on themselves. Maybe make a little calendar note that says that you need to look at your decision again in 3 days if that's where you've set your notification. So I think, yep. So I think that's it. I'll stop sharing. I saw a lot of things popped in the chat that I couldn't keep up with. And I think I'm all set. Thanks.
All right, Jesse, it looks like we're back up. Would you mind starting over?
Absolutely. Good afternoon again, everyone, and thanks everybody for your patience and for bouncing back in here with us. I'm Jessie Bender. I'm the chair of the Incident Workforce Development Group, which is jointly chartered by the Fire Management Board, the National Multi-Agency Coordinating Group, NMAC, and the National Wildfire Coordinating Group's Executive Board. And I'll turn to Tanya to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for your patience on that brief intermission. My name is Tanya Thrift. I am currently serving as BLM Idaho's Deputy State Director for Resources, Lands, and Minerals. Look forward to talking with you today on a few updates. And originally we had a little bit of time planned for some questions, but if you guys just want to roll those into the chat, and between Jesse and I, we'll make sure that we follow up with you after.
Oh, perfect, Tanya, thank you. I am sharing the wrong window. That's a perfect segue. All right, so let me figure out how to make that stop and share the right one. So I just dropped the links into the chat for you, and those have all of the links that we're going to look at here today. And all of those links are also found in, there we go. Now we should be sharing the right one. All of those links are also found in the story map that you're looking at right here, right now. This is the single consolidated location for all efforts from IWDG, and that includes our agency administrators subgroup and any of the information that they've released as well. Primary focus today for Tanya and I are a few key updates on complex incident management. 2024 was our first full year of complete implementation of complex incident management. And one of the values of having the link to the story map is if any of this information is new to you, if you're not certain why we moved away from type 1 and type 2 teams and have adopted complex incident management teams, all of that background history, data, information is all found in this story map. And really the biggest element of change that we are dealing with through this is the cultural change. And this is an opportunity to reiterate a lot of what Jon Raby and Mike Ned and Grant Beebe all said early on. There's so much collateral duty reliance for incident management teams, and there's a lot of opportunity right now for us as leadership to really encourage the sustainability and viability of our incident management team response and personnel. And so, Tanya, I'll scroll down to the agency administrator portion if there's anything else you want to say in the meantime.
Yeah, and for folks that might be new to BLM, So the chartered subgroup that Jesse mentioned, so I am currently BLM's representative on that agency administrator subgroup. And we also have representatives from Bureau of Indian Affairs, Forest Service, state agencies, as well as National Park Service.
This section of the story map that we're looking at is the key updates for 2025. And so where I'm going to draw your attention to is the agency administrator portion. This little piece doesn't have the sum total of all of the changes that have occurred, even this year, let alone in the past 5 years. But this is a really valuable and quick reference for all of you. So the one I want to show you first is the pre-mobilization IMT call that's down here. And I'm going to open up that document. This is meant to help you as the agency administrator in having the discussion with an incoming incident management team and incident commander about your incident, why you need their help, what the complexities of that incident are. The new CIMT configuration, and there's a new type 3 IMT configuration that are available for this year. The details of those, your state FMOs, your AFMOs, your members of the fire leadership team and the fire operations group, they're all well versed on what the nuts and bolts of those requirements are. The key consideration for you is down here at the bottom of this form, there is a signature portion where if the roster is above 75 for that CIMT or above 35 for a type 3 team coming from out of the geographic area, then your signature is required to approve that. And then this form has to be attached in the IROC ordering system to show that you have had that conversation with the IC about what the complexities of the incident are. You've reviewed the risk and complexity assessment, which Sarah mentioned a few minutes ago in talking about WFDSS. You've explained what all those functional complexity needs are, and you are approving that roster for mobilization. The rest of this is really just a helpful outline for you on how to have that initial conversation with the IC. A lot of you have done it a dozen times and maybe don't need this much framework, but for a lot of new agency administrators, we're hearing that having some kind of guidance for how to have that conversation and what key things to cover so that you don't go too deep into the weeds in that first call is really helpful. Tanya?
Yeah, so I know as an agency administrator, I always appreciated having a checklist because let's face it, you're in the middle of all things multiple use, plus you've got this emergency on your hands. And as we've continued to grow and help support this, cultural change that Jesse referenced, agency administrators, you guys play a really critical role in having some of those really deep conversations with your local FMO, as well as your geographic area level participant. It's probably typically going to be your state FMO. They're going to bring to that conversation a lot greater awareness of what's going on, in the rest of the fire community outside of your specific organization, to really help hone and work with you and the incident commander to make sure that you're bringing the things to your incident that you need, or in the situations where, maybe there might be a shortage of some resources. I say that, kind of tongue in cheek because it seems like that happens to us almost every single year. So that we're really having that hard conversation and that we're not taking things off an incident that maybe you could get by without. And really that document that Jesse's got on the screen is going to provide even a little bit more detail as you think through the complexity of your incident. I know in previous roles as field manager and district manager, it was pretty easy for me to get kind of my own little myopic view of my empire and the things that I've got going on. And really, as agency administrators, most of us, we don't have time to, know the details of what's going on so far outside of our home units, which is why we want to bring those other folks into the conversation and make sure that we're right-sizing the teams and continuing to support the sustainability of the teams for the incidents that are occurring in the area.
This document that you're seeing now is that risk and complexity assessment. And again, that is linked from right here on the story map and is one of the links that's available in all of those other links I dropped to you all. So the next piece we wanted to touch on is hosting IMTs and some of the logistical considerations. over the past few years, as a result of many of the other things happening in our lives as a result of COVID and the need to do some operations differently, as a result of a lot of the mental health issues and initiatives that have been taking place. There's been a lot of discussion about how to host an IMT and what those logistical needs really are. While the traditional yurt camp that we've all seen and been a part of is still very valid and appropriate, there are times where it may be more efficient, effective, and maybe even more cost savings to have an IMT in a hotel or in a conference space where they can get really good internet service, where they can work in what we've called a hub and spoke model, where they're in a centralized location that's easy to work with the agency administrators and other agency representatives, but can still support multiple incidents or even just one large incident on the landscape from that spot. The Fire Executive Council has also taken note of this and has issued a tasking that is currently sitting with the Fire Management Board and with NMAC to address some of these more holistically and systemically to encourage those sorts of out-of-the-box, maybe more modern approaches to hosting an IMT. And as, again, referring back to what John and Mike and Grant all said earlier in this call, people going out on a fire and it's collateral duty team member, they ought to be prepared to sleep in the dirt. But in terms of taking care of our people and even encouraging folks to be part of IMTs, sometimes that offering of being able to stay in a hotel, eat off per diem instead of a caterer can really make the difference and encourage them to actually want to be a part of IMTs. And that's something Tanya and I want to emphasize too. This particular memo right here, which is linked directly from that story map, although it came out in 2023 and really is about the implementation in wording of CIM, it is still extremely valid today. One of the pieces that the agency administrator group wrote into this is what participation on an IMT brings back to the local unit and to a person's day job. Those leadership elements, that opportunity to be a part of the national response and fire when it's a priority is really critical to us holistically as an agency and an entity. The need to support other units when they have fires so that when you have a fire on your home unit, you know you're going to get that support too is really highlighted in here as well.
Yeah, and one of the items that we talked about with, potentially shifting away from, always automatically going to that, your camping, tent camping scenario. That'll definitely be also a shift in the public's eyes. And so I think as agency administrators, we need to think ahead about how we might have those conversations with some of those local elected officials that are, wondering, how come half of your team is in town when the incident is, maybe an hour drive or more away. And so I think thinking ahead of like, hey, we're trying to support our people. We want to make sure that, that incident that's so critical to the local communities and our response is effective, timely, and that we're setting our folks up for success, especially, as things get later into the, I'll say, fire year instead of season. I'm sure you've all experienced some of the cumulative fatigue of being out on assignments. And even if you're the agency administrator that's hosting teams, like you see that as the year goes by. And, I tie it back to that sustainability piece. Like we want to be able to make sure that we've got all the tools in the toolbox to support the folks that are going on the teams that are helping us out during those emergencies.
And the last one that we really want to emphasize from here is the IMT evaluation. So again, that is linked here on this story map. It's also available in the NMAC reference documents, which is one of the links that I put into our chat. This form was revised last year. There had been a lot of work done initially by the Forest Service's National Line Officer team to create a more modernized IMT evaluation. And then that was handed over to the agency administrator subgroup, and Tanya and her peers were able to ensure that it was fully interagency in wording and scope and finalize it so that it could be utilized last year. In 2024, we got a lot of these completed, but we also saw a lot of the old forms going through too, and teams still getting evaluated with them. Any evaluation, of course, is helpful and beneficial. But even the rating levels on this new one are different. The past one was a 5-tier system. This one is a 3. So we really want to encourage you all to make sure you're utilizing the new form in any IMT evaluations that you do complete this year. And there is a routing list. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here. You can see there's a number of agency administrator signature blocks. So if you are on a multi-jurisdictional fire, you should have plenty of room for all those AAs. But then it is supposed to be routed through the coordinating group for both the incident and the IMT, if the IMT is coming from a different geographic area, and then up to NMAC, so that NMAC also has visibility on the performance of IMTs. And really, NMAC's role in this is to see any large inconsistencies across the nation and how they can help teams improve in their standard approaches, but also to address any major red flags that may be going up through the coordinating group as well. And that's where we want to touch on truly honest and quantifiable feedback as part of this process. Not just rubber stamping this, but really taking the time to have that conversation with the IC about what is done well and accolades where accolades are due, but also when the time is necessary to have that hard conversation about the need for improvement, that really is documented here.
Yeah, and I would just add on that, I think, you know, it's as agency administrators and leaders in our organization, you know, we all get personally evaluated through our, you know, our EPAPs, our performance appraisal plans. And, you know, we all give those to other people, to others that, you know, are subordinate to us. So I would really liken this back to, it's like, we need to be like honest, you know, honest in feedback, to reiterate what Jesse said. Because if there's, you know, if there's challenges or things that aren't going well, don't wait till the end of the incident to, you know, sit down with the IC and go, well, gosh, you know, I actually think you get a -2 instead of a +5. And where it's like, have those, you know, we're paid to have those hard conversations. And we need to be doing that effectively and early if, you know, if we're concerned about the direction things are going, so that you can get to that, you know, evaluation at the end. I think, you know, we're a small organization that manages a lot of land, but you all know that word gets out on, you know, how if things went well, or maybe they didn't go as well. And so really stepping up to the plate and being prepared to have those, you know, critical conversations timely, so that, you know, that team has good feedback that they can apply next time. And certainly as agency administrators, like, we need to be open to receiving that feedback on, you know, maybe how well prepared we were, or, you know, the situation on the home unit that, you know, that incident team is coming in to help us with. You know, being open to, you know, constructive criticism both ways is really important as we continue to build on some of these cultural changes of implementing CIO.
One more time, I'm going to go back to the story map and note that we do also have links here to the BLM Agency Administrator Toolbox, the Interagency Toolbox that Sarah mentioned earlier. So our intent here is to help make this as easy as possible for you to find everything you need from here. And the link to this story map is also found on that BLM Agency Administrator Toolbox. The IWDG webpage that you can link from there, again, has a great deal of information and background on implementation of complex incident management. You can find the membership for IWDG here, where you'll see Erin Thompson is the BLM's representative. And then again, all the way down at the bottom here is our AA subgroup membership, and that's where Tanya's contact information is. So if you want to reach out to Tanya or I or Erin directly, our information is right here, and we'd be more than happy to hear from you. And then the other thing, there are a number of FAQs here that I always like to mention too, for folks who may be looking for more information beyond just AA specific. But the other place I'll point out is that we do ask for constructive feedback on every single thing that we do, including every element of complex incident management. You can provide anonymous feedback if you don't want to share your name. But if you have a question or really want to have a conversation, then we definitely appreciate getting your name and contact information there. So again, I will stop sharing. please put any questions that you may have into the chat for Tanya and I, and we'll respond to those as we go through the rest of the webinar this afternoon, and reach out to us if you do want to have a conversation directly. And thank you so much for your time. And again, thanks to Jon and Mike and Grant for all of your really poignant remarks about the need for participation on IMTs and that collateral duty effort and everything we're trying to do to make it easier for you all as supervisors to support your people going on incident management teams, because we definitely need that help and support on the incident management teams. So for me, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we will go back to Angie.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Third time. So BLM prescribed fire training and just policy in general is found in multiple spots. So I just wanted to list these out. I also put them in the AA toolbox. So first we have the NWCG standards for prescribed fire training and implementation. It's pretty much the minimally acceptable standards for BL or for RX. So agencies can be more restrictive, and then within BLM, states and districts could be more. So the BLM additional requirements are listed in the 9214, the Fuels Management and Community Assistance Handbook. And they range from anything like additional requirements on the prescribed burn plan elements, such as development in the prescription of rate of spread and flame links, to also ensuring that one burn plan a year is technically reviewed from someone outside your unit. Then we have the Fuels Management and the Community Assistance Manual, and that goes over the roles and responsibilities from everyone from the Assistant Director of Fire and Aviation to the burn boss, and it includes AADM responsibilities. Currently, FA 600 is in the revision process for the 9214. So if you have any questions, please reach out to your district, your state fuels leads. And then finally, I listed the red book there. It also has the policy for wildland fire management authorities. So next, state director responsibilities for prescribed burning. It is approving prescribed fire plans within the delegation of authority, and then approving prescribed fire implementation at a national or geographic area preparedness level 4 and 5. So if you have fire seasons like last summer when we were in PL 4 and 5 into the fall and overlapping with prescribed fire windows, you're still approving those, but if you wanted to reach out to FA 400 or FA 300 or 600, we could provide more information as resource availability nationwide as Brian sits in on those NMAC calls. State directors will also ensure the adequate and proper review of all prescribed fires that are declared a wildfire. So if you have a declared wildfire with significant burn area on private or other agency lands, or an estimated expenditure up to $250,000 for suppression or property damage, and of course any serious personal injury. So what is a declared wildfire? So it's a prescribed fire with a portion or a segment must be declared if, one, the prescription parameters are exceeded and holding and contingency actions cannot be secured by the end of the next burning period, or the fire is spread outside your project area or is likely to do so, and the associated contingency actions have failed, and the fire cannot be contained by the end of the next burn period, or the fire is spread onto private land adjacent and you do not have a agreement with them. So for reference, the last 27 years, BLM has had 19 declared wildfires. 8 of those have been national reviews. 11 were state reviews, and then 2 state reviews that were on incidents that were not declared, so lessons learned. All of these reviews can be found at the Lesson Learned website. So again, what's the difference between a state and a national review? State is up to 250,000. The Assistant Director of Fire and Aviation is responsible for ensuring those national review up to 250,000 of suppression and or property damage. But also, you know, states can ask for a national review if there is something social or political within your state or area. Just call FA and we will make sure you get what you need covered. Okay, the last one is for AADM's responsibilities. There are 2 key documents that you need to understand and be involved with. And prescribed fire is one of the most highest risk activities the BLM does. The first table, color table up there is prior to even doing your prescribed burn, sit down with your burn boss and do a pre-complexity analysis, and that will help you determine your values, assessment of the risk to those values, and the technical difficulty in mitigating those risks. Then you can incorporate, if you had any mitigation actions to lower that risk, into your burn plan. So once the burn plan is near completion, you would sit back down again on this worksheet with your burn boss and do the final complexity rating determination. And that will tell you the type of organization and the level of burn boss you need for implementation. The second one is prior to implementation. You have the agency administrator ignition authorization. And that is done with your burn boss and or FMO. Some key discussion on there that you should be having. Has anything changed? Drought, climate, a new sub-activity or structure within the area? Has compliance requirements and pre-burn considerations been complete? So do you have your prep work done, NEPA clearances, cultural clearances, and do you have a smoke permit obtained? Are there circumstances that could affect the implementation of your burn? Again, the preparedness levels may be increased or limit availability of resources. Any additional prescribed fire or wildfire in the area? Do you have a process in place to ensure the internal and external notifications and that key staff within your office have been briefed? So this is the time that you can communicate your expectations to your burn boss and FMO regarding when and how you want to be notified if they start to take contingency actions, and then the process of declaring the prescribed fire a wildfire. So when you have an incident, there's no hesitation, there's no question on what the process is and how the notification. And then again, on the bottom, you'll see that it says a time period that you feel comfortable with that you're authorizing this burn. I think that's all. Any questions at the end?
Okay, thank you. We'll be moving on to fire safety overview with Tyler, Brian, and Carmen.
All right, thank you, Morgan. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak here today. So a lot of changes within our fire safety shop. So I just want to introduce myself and a little bit of the different programs, stuff we have working within that group. So I'm Tyler McCowan, just a brand new fire safety program manager for the BLM. I started a couple months ago. Previously worked as our operational medical support program manager. So that does fall within that safety program. That's currently vacant right now. We do have Dr. Drew Southard, our chief medical officer for the BLM, our BLM medical director. So still continuing on with those trainings, still really excited to see kind of the turnout we've had so far with some of those trainings, been able to supplement some needs with some detailers. So I really appreciate all the support getting those folks out there. Last year, we had almost 400 providers that we had put through the training, got authorized to be able to provide care. Hoping to see some more continued numbers and participation like that. Just next month, coming up in April, we'll have California, Idaho, Nevada will be holding a second training, Colorado and Alaska a second training as well. So a lot going on there, and just appreciate the support, allowing folks to participate in those. Carmen Thomason sitting here to my left, we're happy to have her. She just started as our BLM CISM program manager. A lot going on within the CISM program, not only within the Bureau itself, but across the department and even in an interagency aspect. So one thing you've probably heard about and continue to see as expanded stuff comes out from that group of the interagency federal wildland firefighter health and well-being program. So kind of a joint program across DOI and the Forest Service. One of the things with that program is these behavioral health officers, BHOs, that are strategically placed around kind of the West. So you have one per region. Those are really tools that you can reach out to that are able to help you identify some resources, identify some tools that might be available to folks outside of that bureau specific stuff. So anything related to a CISM response, if you have questions about how to request a CISM response, how that looks as far as mobilization, all that's in that agency administrator guide, as well with the loss of human life handbook and even the serious incident or fatality plan templates that are in there. Good to work through those exercises with your fire programs, and we're happy to be included in those. So if you want to reach out and include us in those exercises, I think that's incredibly valuable for us too. I guess continuing, one of the things that we're also managing in the summertime is we manage the serious accident investigation roster. So that is, anytime there's a serious incident or fatality, something that meets that criteria of an SA. On the BLM side, we would mobilize, our teams to go in and then do an accident investigation. Those, team members, it's a significant commitment, and there's kind of a fewer and fewer as some folks, due to retirement and other things, have dropped off those lists. But there is a significant need, especially at the team lead level. That's typically a GS 14 and above. There's a DOI SAI course that's currently in DOI talent. It says that it's I think the terminology is it's being worked on or under progress, under revision. But if you're interested in that course, you can go ahead and try to sign up through that link. That's just a request for nomination, so there'll be a selection period after that. But highly encourage anyone interested in that to please sign up, talk to your leadership, talk to your state safety managers, but definitely looking for some more folks to help fulfill that roster requirement and need. Last thing I think I'll touch on, there's just been a lot of questions and still a lot of unknown, is OWCP's kind of expansion with the Defense Authorization Act, National Defense Authorization Act, signed for 2023, that included some of these presumptive illnesses, a lot of cancers. There's an acute, heart and stroke related stuff within a 24-hour period of fighting fire, suppressing fire. So those things have kind of come out and can be addressed through a special claims unit through OWCP. There's a lot of information out there. We can help share some of that information, but just know that stuff's out there. If you have any questions, concerns about that, working with your safety manager is a great place to start. We can help with some information as well. Ultimately, working with your state safety managers, your HROs, working closely with OWCP, these claims are typically, of course, they're all handled on a case-by-case basis, but working through that process, to be adjudicated in a more timely fashion as compared to a traditional OWCP claim. They're all going to be handled case to case, so if you have any issues or concerns, you can always reach out. That is all I had. Carmen.
All right, thanks, Tyler. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carmen Thomason. I recently started working for Tyler as the CISM program manager, but today I wanted to take a few minutes to highlight a resource that is part of the tool of that larger incident. If something were to occur and there's a serious accident that then becomes a fatality. I work as a member of the BLM Honor Guard. And unfortunately, Mike was talking about at the top of this call that we want all of our employees to go out and be able to participate in wildfires and come home safely. And it is an unfortunate fact that sometimes things happen and we lose some of them in the line of duty. And so the Bureau of Land management has a fire and aviation honor guard. It is comprised of 14 members that are all collateral duties, that they're fire and aviation employees who have had to apply and they work with us. And our primary mission is to go and assist units when there is a loss of life that is a line of duty death. So primarily we support fire and aviation. Secondarily, we can support the larger BLM staff, and then we also work with the other agencies if they lose a firefighter as well. And so how those requests come in here to NIFC is Brian Achziger, who already kind of gave a little bit of an intro. Again, the top of the call is our liaison here to fire and aviation, and those requests will come into him. And then we will work out what response is available, or if it kind of meets the parameters of sending the honor guard. And then we can come to help with what ceremonial aspects need to be taken care of, and working with that unit to really show our care and respect for that member of our community. And there is a link in the agenda that takes you to our SharePoint site if you are curious who our membership is. There are members from across all of the states. We traditionally bring new members on in the fall. So if you have someone on your unit that you think would potentially be a good fit, like I said, they are core members of fire and aviation. And one thing I just want to also quickly highlight is the BLM fire and aviation honor guard may not always be the right tool for the job, but there are other things that are out there. BLM also has a law enforcement honor guard, so that's a tool that's in our toolbox. And then also recognizing our additional honor guards that are in the Wildland Fire Agency. So Forest Service has one, Fish and Wildlife has one, and we have similar missions in supporting the fire community and loss of life of our firefighters. But those other honor guards may have somewhat different responses. BLM's honor guard may have different than you may see from the Forest Service. And so they just aren't all created equal. And so if you have some requests, please give us a call. If you have questions, we're certainly happy to talk through them and entertain those for anyone. But like I said, I just wanted to do a quick introduction of myself, share that that's a resource available to everyone, and hopefully it is not something that you need on your unit, but if you do, please know it is certainly an honor and a privilege for us to be able to come in, help when we are having one of our darkest days.
Thank you. All right, now we'll be moving over to Matt, Program Manager for Remote Pilot Remote Systems.
All right. Let me share the right screen here. Can everybody see that and hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for hanging on. My name's Matt Dutton. I work in the National Aviation Office, FA 500 here in Boise at the National Interagency Fire Center. And I will and you guys can see this slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Talking kind of broadly about the aviation or UAS component in the Bureau, but I'll, in the interest of time, stay focused on the kind of fire elements related to this spring update. The spring update is something that all of the state aviation managers have. I briefed out on this at the aviation management group a couple of weeks ago. And I think one of the themes that you'll see or hear over the next 5 minutes or so is the role the state aviation manager plays in certainly UAS and this program, but of course all aviation activities of which UAS is part of. So for us in 2025, we knew this was coming even before the administration change. It was going to be a big year of transition. We had a lot of work to do to get rid of our old non-compliant UAS fleet and move our new compliant systems in. We've had some leadership changes, and of course we've had the administration change. So we're prepped for that, and we continue to kind of exercise that transition throughout this year. I do want to kind of call out at the bottom of the screen there some folks that are really instrumental in kind of advancing the Bureau UAS program. Again, as I mentioned, we have UAS across a variety of different program areas throughout the Bureau, but from a fire perspective, a lot of effort is put into the planning and standards, training development, and training delivery for the fire mission. And folks listed at the bottom here, Tristan Holland, Gilbert Garcia, Adam Ridley, Stephen Levitt, Robert Ordonez, Dustin Wessel, play huge roles, continue to play huge roles in our relationship with NWCG and their IPTM process and kind of advancing the qualification and position requirements for the 4 UAS positions that exist in the 310-1 catalog. Just a slide here. Again, this PowerPoint is available in the toolbox and is really just a reference presentation for you. And on this slide are a number of links, the relevant Bureau instructional memos and internal standards that we lean on. And it's a great place to reference or find question or answers to questions you might have. Brief program update. As part of that transition, we've found ourselves on a little bit more stable ground when it comes to fleet and policies and utilization of UAS across all program areas. Just a reminder that that also allows us to tap into things like contracting and in-product contracting. If we have programs or needs where we want to tap into, or we think we want to tap into any aviation asset, but in this case specifically UAS, we want to make sure that state aviation manager is included in that communication early and often. Quick look at our fleet. This is the new compliant fleet that we're transitioning to. We started transitioning, I'd say maybe this time last year, and we're pretty close to concluding that. By June of this year, we will have completed our transition. That is the procurement and delivery of those aircraft systems, and then the training of these new systems with each of our remote pilots. These are the 3 primary aircraft the Bureau is leveraging right now. That's pretty much consistent across the Department of Interior. Skydio X10 is our small, we kind of reference them as baby bear, mama bear and papa bear, but the X10 is kind of small backpack size. Astro is a little bit bigger, and then that Alta X is really large, like a large table. And the Alta X is pretty much only used for heavy lift in that aerial ignition mission profile on wildfires and prescribed fire. But the benefit of that is that we've got that niche for that kind of mission set. But overwhelmingly, to the tune of maybe 85 to 90% of all Bureau UAS mission profiles can be satisfied with the Skydio X10 and or the Astro. So that's something that we like to communicate. As you can see there, we're up to about 56 new systems. We still have about 56 of the old systems in the inventory. But by the end of the calendar year, we'll retire those old systems and continue to kind of advance and grow the program as a whole. Remote pilot update. I mentioned the training. It's taken a lot of work to get from our peak, which was in 2019. You can see at the bottom of the slide there, 3,000 flights for 543 hours. Of course, after 2020, we had a little bit of department and executive policies that we had to address, and we're kind of climbing out of that hole now. And so what we're looking at here is we've got 65 remote pilots carded current with aircraft that are out doing good work across all the program areas in these states listed here. I'll call out the third bullet as well. The state supplements, again, the theme, how we leverage or utilize and tap into our state aviation managers every year. So for those that are thinking about bringing UAS to your district or your field office or your state, every year we ask the state aviation manager to engage with all of the participants or employees and programs in a state, complete this supplement and turn it into us by June. And that supplement helps us determine what our procurement and training and then subsequent training needs will be for the following fiscal year. So right now, state aviation managers should be working through those supplements. They've got a couple of months to get through that. And then as we review them, receive them, and review them, we'll start building a plan for procurement and training for fiscal year 26. Big news on the fire front, on the prescribed fire front. We can now establish TFRs or temporary flight restrictions over prescribed fires. That's a really big deal for UAS operations. Having a TFR over prescribed fire allows us to do quite a bit more under the blanket of policy because we kind of own that airspace. So we are encouraging in the instances where we have a prescribed fire and the need or want to use UAS to get that TFR up. And again, field specialists and state aviation managers are all well versed on this stuff. The last bullet there, we do have a project request tracker out there. We recognize that as we're kind of reestablishing the program and growing our capacity as a bureau, that not everybody has UAS or access to UAS. So that project request and it's also a tracker is an opportunity for anybody in the BLM, again, work with your unit aviation managers, state aviation managers, to put in a request for service effectively. We take that information, coordinate with the state aviation managers and the folks that have UAS and remote pilots, and see if we can't get some bureau prioritization assigned to those projects and see them through to fruition. So we have a couple in there right now for prescribed fire in Nevada, Montana, and Wyoming, and we're in the process of coordinating that service. Just some bullets on some, the background of what goes on to allows us to do the things that we do in the field. The certificate of authorization is something that OAS, the Office of Aviation Services, manages on behalf of the DOI. That is a 2-year document and it's up for renewal, and they are in the process of doing that. We've got an extension, as you can see there, through April, but we're expecting a new COA. And that COA, their certificate of authorization, is that document that allows us to do those extra things in a TFR on a prescribed fire or wildfire. So we're really looking forward to getting that new COA back out, so we're ready to go for the field season. Big one on the bottom there. I really encourage you all to, as we get into kind of preseason meetings here with our cooperators, partners, it's important to realize that in pre-UAS, a lot of entities, city, county, state governments, universities, etc., maybe didn't technically have an aviation program. They didn't have a helicopter or a fixed-wing airplane. But with UAS, now we have folks like that have aviation programs. Those are people that are putting aircraft, FAA certificated aircraft, into the national airspace. And what we're starting to see is all of those entities, again, city, county, state, volunteer fire departments, sheriff's offices, etc., have UAS and they want to use them and leverage the technology over their incidents or any incident to for whatever purpose they put it in the air. We want to make sure that from a BLM perspective that we're engaging with our partners and having that kind of big picture aviation discussion, particularly when it comes to UAS, so that everybody knows and all parties know that when we put any aircraft into the airspace, we need to make sure that we've got coordination, communication, and deconfliction standards in place. And NWCG and PMS 515 are those standards. And so where those standards exist, we need to do a really good job in these preseason meetings to communicate that message and educate and point people in the right direction to make sure that we're all contributing to safe air operations in the national airspace. So again, just a real strong encouragement to, in this preseason phase before fire season, to work with our partners and cooperators and ask those questions. And my line's always open if folks have any questions, as are the state aviation managers and unit aviation managers. A quick list of committees in the BLM that have some role to play in informing and influencing the standards and operations of UAS for the Bureau or UAS on wildland fire. The big one I'll call out here are the top two. We've got a brand new remote pilots and aircraft committee. They're underway. They, by and large, will be informing and influencing and the second of our BLM pilots and field practitioners are the folks that are actually out doing the flying, an opportunity to come together once a month and kind of share lessons learned and help us grow as a Bureau. Lastly, just a couple links for statistics for your viewing pleasure. You can click on these and access them, and you'll see the top one is an OAS DOI driven statistical report for all of the bureaus that have UAS programs. And then the second is specific to the BLM. And then, of course, we like to link the podcast that External Affairs put out last year as a pretty good dialogue and some questions to answers you may have. And then just a snapshot of our pilot distribution across all of the states. And with that, I think I'll conclude and wish you all a good, happy weekend. And if there's anything I can do, my line's always open. Happy to have a conversation or answer questions.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you all presenters for your subject matter expertise. Thank you to participants for your time, your engagement, and patience while I work through the technical difficulties we had earlier. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the presenters or the POCs that they listed in their presentations. And we hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you.